doing something wrong here. It's the third try here. Keep this camera fell over, knocked the file out. Then I guess I didn't hit the button hard enough or something. Anyway, response video, Modern Mystic, and sort of reaction video anyway. Not too sure you went in a direction I find terribly helpful. I mean, it was just more like, you know, I get a buzz, that's why I do it. I mean, that's kind of a simplistic. I think the reasons we do things can be explained deeper and more thoroughly than that. What gives us a buzz and why we buzz, and how we can buzz better. I think there's lots of ground for conversation. I think it's like, this is the big subject, isn't it? Why do we do what we do? And can what we do and why we do it be modified by ideas or thoughts? Is it all just mechanical? Is it all just, you know, physical? Or is there something constructed in the brain? You know, back to the lizard, ape, human argument, that there's degrees of rigidity in this programming. Some of the programming's that visceral thing, hot, cold, warm, comfortable, uncomfortable, in this, you know, soft, hard kind of way. And then some of this programming is this mushy emotional crap, and then some of this programming is this intellectual, I'll give you a context that'll make you emotionally understand why this is a good thing, and you'll feel good about yourself because I give you a more complex understanding. And so I think that's the more important subject, just saying I do something because it gives me a buzz, or it gives me a buzz and a half. You know, I get a little half extra buzz if I get a trophy for it too, and everybody says great job. You know, but I'm really doing it because I want to do it. So that premise on itself, I didn't care for too much. This idea that we do art because we get something out of it. You know, sorry. Most of the art I do, especially like you even used mechanics. You know, a mechanic is an artist in a sense. These people are doing things because they have to do it to make a living. So they're conforming. They're making themselves do art to survive. And certainly much of my art nowadays has a mission tied to it. You know, if I had my preference, if I didn't have to worry about paying bills or being useful to the world, yeah, I would be doing a completely different kind of art. Yeah, I'm sure it would be a little wanky. You know, not that I'll go there, but I'm just saying that, yeah, that's where my spirit lies. My soul is, you know, not, you know, it doesn't have a broad sense of taste or desire or preference. Its aesthetics are simple and crude. So the most visceral part of me buzzes on pretty crude crap. And it's only this conditioning and higher shit, so that aspires me to do different kinds of art more directed at some other function, some other accomplishment, some other kind of score, you know, goal I'm trying to score through my maneuvering of the puck, or maneuvering of the soccer ball into the right position and kicking it the right way, and, you know, performing my art. It's a very, again, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the environment I'm in. And this is what you have to do in this environment. You have to fight the bugs. It's a bug planet. You have to fight the bugs. You can't just garden yet. You have other things you have to do. So maybe for you, life is leisure, life is choice, life is do what I feel like doing today. But for me, I still feel the pressure of realizing I live in a world that is a mess, and there's work to do here, whether I'm paid for it or not. So anyway, a little critique in there, a little snide remark, yes, you know, but that's how I see it. So I said it. But getting to the point, so I want to get back to this, you know, the levels of our programming, the crude, hard-written stuff, the conditioned stuff, the sensibilities that aren't, they're hard, it's software that is difficult to reprogram, but it is not impossible to create extensions to it, to create attachments to it that make it perform in a certain way. So yes, it's easy to trick a lizard. It's really more difficult to trick the ape, or maybe the other way around. Yeah, it's harder to trick the lizard. It's easier to trick the ape, and it's, that's really the game we're in, is gaming the organisms. So aesthetics is part of this art word, I think, and so we can think in terms of something that's, again, just reaction, immediate reaction, and say pretty, ugly in some sort of crude way. Then we can add a little bit of context and tell a little bit of a story and give something some dignity, and all of a sudden something like an old man, or something that we first impression might have been ugly, but we tell his story of being a war hero and doing this and doing that, and all of a sudden he's a lot prettier. He has a lot more. There's more meaning to him. So in his function, he has become beautiful. And so we see that in things that function very well, very efficient machines, an engine running just right. There's a certain beauty to a functional device. The watch that lasts 20 years or 100 years. Precision, quality, sparkle, clean. This kind of stuff has a beauty to it. And the beauty's in the perfection of its function. And so we can gain something from that too in our lives. So I'm just kind of striving to be a very well functioning device, to be very articulate and precise in our interaction with the world and getting the job done. There can be a beauty in that satisfies our ego, that satisfies our perception of worth and value. So it becomes an aesthetic. We acquire a refined taste, a capacity to distinguish between something well made and something, crass and cheap and tacky, and something that'll last 100 years and something that'll last 5 months. You gain a refinement in your taste, and that refinement sits on top of your crude taste, but it informs it. It's like wearing binoculars. It adds to your vision. It gives you a deeper vision, a more extensive vision, a more complete picture of what's out there. And that's what our sensibilities can become when they're refined. We become a better artist, a better critiquer of art, a better consumer of art. Alright, so the end thing is this, it can lead to, when we measure performance of ourselves, our function, a lot of that is for me, constructed out of some utility, being useful. This is very important to, you can almost say this is a fundamental element of the difference between the sexes. Let's say this might be my woman side or something. Is that, like a woman, I find gratification and satisfaction in being useful. And you could say that that's a distinction between men and women, is that women need to be needed. They get off on it. And I could say that I kind of, my feminine side, I kind of get off on being useful. Of being of value to somebody, to making something easier for them. I don't necessarily want to I don't want to jump on top of mud puddles all day and get stomped on, but I do get a gratification in being useful if it doesn't cost me too much, in terms of my own dignity especially. So we do good and we feel good. So we get a buzz out of doing good, performing well, functioning well, and so this is the buzz, and if we can get paid to do it, even better, right? So that could be the half. And I guess it comes down to you can to an extent you can turn a want into a need. You can take something that's basic in us and you can alter it by wanting to extend or refine or perfect, wanting things to be better, and you can make yourself need them to be better. And you could say that our conditioning is crude, but understanding can extend it. Understanding can give your conditioning binoculars and a microscope, and it can give it the tools where you can put lipstick on the pig. Yeah, but you could also see the context. And so back to the original analogy, you can see what might look like just a homeless creep. You hear a little bit of a backstory, and all of a sudden it looks like the dignity of age, or some much more appealing ugliness. It's made beautiful, and it's not putting lipstick on a pig. It's putting truth, on a crass first perception. It's putting truth on a bigotry, and so you're refined out of your evil. Much like just some knowledge could give somebody the capacity to see slavery two different ways. Somebody could just look and say, well, they're just dumb darkies. And then somebody could have a little bit of understanding, a little bit of knowledge, have a little conversation with a couple of these people, maybe understand their plight, and all of a sudden this tragedy becomes obvious, and the hardship and the brutality and the unfairness becomes obvious. So, I don't think it's... I could almost, we've had these programming arguments. I'd almost say that it's a way of looking at it is that there's these old programs, and they're old evolutionarily and in our own lives. They're just like the old or the archaic or the visceral, not visceral, what was that, like the appendix, some vestigial. They're vestigial programs. They don't even have any relevance to a civilized life. But these programs exist in us, and we have these new programs that are attempting to compete with the old ones. They're attempting to modify and refine them, and it is a certain kind of process, but it's a process over which we have a lot of control, but obviously some things you can't control. A repulsive smell is a repulsive smell. It's hard to modify those sensibilities even with a context. So some of it is visceral, some of it you can't undo that, but context can add a lot to what buzzes us, as long as we're not getting exclusively buzzed by the lizard. So as long as it's not all our buzzes aren't entirely lizard buzzes, as long as there's some emotional ape that you can manipulate, and with a story, manipulate with a context you can create, a zoo, an environment you can create for it. Your brain, your intellect can create environments for the ape to live in, where it can see purpose and honor and pride, beauty in precision and function, and it can be refined in terms of its reaction. And so the emotional ape is manipulating the crude lizard, and thoughts, programs, ideas can manipulate both, directly and indirectly. Directly to the ape, indirectly to the visceral lizard eventually. But like I say, some visions are the lizard has access to our senses, and sometimes that lizard is going to say what it's going to say, and it's just going to say it whether we like to hear it or not, and we're not going to be able to overwhelm its reaction. We're not going to be able to suppress its reaction, but there's a whole section of those reactions where we can modify its environment, put something else on the LCD screen in front of it, and have it react differently. And certainly we can do that for the ape. So I think that's my contribution. But yeah, I mean, this is everything in terms of a subject, right? This is this whole going beyond what we are kind of thing, this whole existential yammer that people talk about. You know, this is where the conversation goes, is to this psychology and to the fact that ideas can completely, substantially alter why and what we paint, how well we function. Productivity. I don't know what you know. I mean, you'd have to concede first that there is some distinction between a cesspool and a beautiful crystal lake in the top of a mountain. I mean, if you can't make a distinction between those two things, if you can't make a distinction between a cesspool and fresh water, then there's no point in having a conversation. But if you can make a distinction and understand that one is much better than the other in terms of a result, we can understand that we can have that better result by just conforming programs in our head that buzz us for doing the right thing, for doing good things, for being functional, for being efficient. These are the things that should buzz us. Okay, that I think is enough of a video. So, see if there's anything. Yeah, anything. Yeah, from the void. Will the void have anything to say? Till next time.